Hi guys, welcome to today's video. I hope you've checked out my other videos, and if you haven't, please be sure to do that. Please be sure to subscribe, like me on Instagram, follow me on Instagram, and join the Brooktopia club, because you know what? I have big plans for this club and I want to stick to those plans, and it's only going to be fun if you join me on this journey. That's right, at 12 years old, I decided to leave the schoolyard behind and venture out into the world of, well, it was homeschooling for about 3 months, and then it turned into unschooling. So basically, I'm currently studying at one of the top 3 universities in my area. I am studying psychology. I'm in my second year. I'm loving it. I plan on becoming a psychologist. But I was able to do that without, as we call it down here, an ATAR score. And it's funny because a lot of people don't know that you can't live life. You can't be successful. You can't, continue to study or work towards your success without an ATAR score. A lot of people think, a lot of young people think they need an ATAR score or the rest of their life is absolutely over and it's destroyed. And I am here to tell you that that is not true. And this is something that at 11 I actually knew, because when I was 11, I've always been very driven. I've always been very, career and goal-minded. I was the 11-year-old who couldn't wait to be 15 so that I could get an internship or an apprenticeship. Well, it turned out when I was 15, you actually had to be 16 to get an apprenticeship, but that's a different story. But the point is that I had the personality that I was always focused on my future and making sure that I was doing things for myself and making sure that I was doing everything I could to advance. I have a few stories from my childhood. 12 or 11, when I wrote to one of the biggest Australian newspapers, and I wrote to the editor-in-chief about a column that I could do for, young people and kids, and I actually got a letter back discussing how they were interested in that and they wanted to do that, and it didn't end up happening. At the end of the day, that was the type of young person I was. I was very into making sure that I was writing my letters and, trying to advance myself. I never liked school. And it's interesting because when I tell people that I was homeschooled or unschooled or I left school or whatever, the first thing is, were you bullied? And the funny thing is, no. So when I went to my first day of year 7, I actually just said to myself, I ain't doing this. I can't do this. I don't want to do this. The high school felt like a prison to me. And I know that's really negative, and you're supposed to enjoy those types of things, like your first day of high school, blah, blah, blah. But I was just bored with it. And I had a really hard time relating to my peers because, they were interested in things that I just wasn't interested in. They wanted to talk about movies and books that I wasn't allowed to read or watch because they were intended for 15 plus, not 11 and 12-year-olds. So that made it really hard. I came from a household that was about embracing your childhood, and all these people that I was mixing with suddenly wanted to be adults, but I didn't want to be an adult. I wasn't allowed to be an adult. So that made it really hard for me because I couldn't relate to anybody, and I was just bored. I'm thankful that I wasn't bullied, but I definitely found it really hard to conform to what other people expected and wanted, and I just had no interest in that. I didn't want to be a part of that game. So that was one of my issues in year 7. The second issue is that I just wasn't interested in anything. I wasn't interested in science. I wasn't interested in history. And I think it's because it felt like it was being shoved down my throat. I would sit there in science class and the teacher would just keep going and going and going. And I didn't even have a chance to have anything re-explained to me. She wasn't even the type of personality where at 12, you would go up to her and be like, so what does this mean? She would probably yell at you and tell you that, you should have gotten it the first time. So it wasn't this environment that I felt like I could grow in and expand my interests in. And I think that's when I really started to be like, I don't want to do this anymore. I was really serious about it. I was just like, I don't picture myself in the school environment at all. And I went home and I started talking to my mum about homeschooling. And the idea did not sit with my family straight away. I mean, I have an older sister. She went all through high school. So it was I came from this family where people did do things the normal way. And then you've got me being at 12, I don't want to go to school. I just want to do homeschooling, And I had to give a lot of business pitches, and I had to keep trying to sell it to my parents. And I ended up doing the entirety of year 7. But yeah, I just really didn't, I had good moments here and there, but overall it just really wasn't for me. And I think it's funny because I remember when I finally got my mum to agree to homeschool me, and I went to school and I did I didn't brag about it or anything, but I remember telling my friends how I was thinking of doing homeschooling the following year, and the flack that I got from these 12-year-olds who had it pumped into their head that you either stay in school and successful or drop out and become a shit kicker. I remember one girl told me like, oh, my mother would never let me drop out of school and become a hobo like my father. And it's like, well, I never actually said I was dropping out of school. I said I was going to take a different path and do things at home. So yeah, that's kind of like what I received from a lot of people. My extended family, it didn't really resonate with them. The people that I went to school with, it didn't resonate with them. And I'm sure for a long time, even after I left school, people were sort of like, what is she actually doing? And she's not actually going to do anything. But I sit here today and I've actually done a lot for someone who hasn't even turned 21 yet. I've had a lot of life experience and I'm finally on this path where I'm studying something that I love, something that I want to do, and I think that's really cool. And now that I'm on path with what I want to do, when I tell people that I was homeschooled, they go, wow, that's so cool. And I question, like, would they have said that if I had told them I was homeschooled before I got into university? But unfortunately with certain people, like, I won't ever know, but that's definitely something that's played on my mind. After I left school, so I was, entering year 8 in homeschooling, and my mum and I organized like a structured school day, but that only lasted for about 2, maybe 3 months. Like, that didn't really last very long, and we were supposed to go through like all the subjects, and she looked up what she was supposed to teach me, and she laid out homework for me, but it just, like, the routine just wasn't sticking, and it was really hard because at the time my baby brother was literally like a toddler, and it just, usually our school days ended up in like erupting in laughter and stuff like that because he would like get in on the action and whatnot. After 3 months, we actually, like, without intending it to, it just turned into unschooling, and unschooling is where it's basically up to the child what they want to learn and when they want to learn. And a lot of people would like shake their heads at that and be like, no, you can't do that. That's irresponsible, blah, blah, blah. But I was the type of kid who wanted to read knowledge magazines. I wanted to watch documentaries. Like, this is just what I did in my spare time. I wasn't allowed to read at that age, the older celebrity magazines that all my friends were reading. So I was like, okay, cool. Like, I want to read the knowledge magazines. And that was just my natural interest. And it's funny because I learned in a very abstract way. So for fun, I got into conspiracy theories, and people can laugh at this if they want, but through conspiracy theories, I actually I learned a lot of history and a lot of geography. And I think that's actually quite funny because even though conspiracy theories, I mean, that's what they are. They're theories based on facts. So, you can still learn who the president was, who Lee Harvey Oswald was, and all of that sort of stuff. It's just the theory on top of that of did it actually happen or not. Because I think people hear conspiracy theory and they think reptile, the queen changes to a reptile, but that's not the conspiracy theories I'm talking about. So it's funny because that's actually how I got into history, and I love history now, and I love politics, and I got into politics. And I think it's funny because my interests really like blossomed and developed when I was out of the school environment, and I just really would love to be able to do a time machine, go through high school, and then see and compare what I would be like if I stayed in school and if I would have had any interests in these things. And, I've met a lot of people who feel like their creativity died during high school and their zest for life died during high school. And I have a feeling that that would have been me had I stayed, because it just was not a great environment for me. If anything, a person like me would have felt very held back in high school because I was always looking for opportunities, looking for things to do. And I did do things, and I had amazing opportunities that I never would have had I stayed at school. Career opportunities. My resume grew beautifully because of the things that I got into. The life experiences that I had because I was fortunate enough to leave the country and go experience, the actual world. Originally, I wasn't even sure if I was going to go to university, but I want to be a psychologist, so I have to go to university for that. So now I'm at uni, and I think it's really interesting comparing my approach and my attitude towards uni with the attitude and approach of people who have graduated from year 12 and done VCE. So when I started at uni, I knew that I had to be self-sufficient. I knew that it was all on me. I had never written an essay before. I had never written a critical analysis before or a literature review. I had to self-teach all of that stuff. Like, I remember the first assignment I got overwhelmed by it, but I was like, okay, I need to just like look into how to do this. How will I piece it together? I had to learn how to have like an academic style of writing. I definitely had a very informal way of writing, which is, you know, just interesting. I look back at my first assignment and I look back at, you know, my latest lab report, and I'm just like, wow, I grew so much. It's just great to see. I always thought, like, because I hadn't done those things before, like I wasn't very much into literature and whatnot and writing, I kind of questioned if I'd be able to actually succeed within the university environment. But, you know, I'm not bragging, but I am pointing out that I did leave school and I currently get high distinctions, so it is definitely possible. So I knew that I had to self-teach a lot, and I had to put in the extra work to, you know, even find sources outside of my uni that could tell me and teach me how to write a certain way or how to piece together a specific type of essay. Like, I just basically knew it's on me, it's up to me. And then I noticed that the attitude of a lot of people who had kind of gone through high school was they basically felt like they were helpless and hopeless. They basically felt like they were helpless and hopeless when they weren't. But they weren't kind of going that extra mile to learn how to do something. It was very much like, I either can do it or I can't do it, and if I can't do it, I'm gonna freak out. Or not staying on top of assignment due dates, you know, which is actually very interesting because obviously in high school you have teachers always saying, make sure you finish this, make sure you do this. I was always like, this is due on this due date, awesome. You know, I came up with tactics on how to make sure that I could meet those due dates. I just basically was always thinking outside of the box on how to stay on top of uni, but I wasn't seeing this behavior from my co-students who were, you know, graduates of high school. And the other thing was that I was going to uni because I really wanted to study psychology. I had a passion for a subject and a career that you need to go to university to have. And I'm seeing all these students from high school and they have no clue what they're doing at uni. They actually will sit there and be like, I don't know why I'm studying this, but I have to. And they don't have an invested interest. So it goes back to that idea that we drill into young people's heads that you need to go to uni, you need to study to be successful, you need to stay in school, when actually there are many different routes outside of university to build a career. And I think it's very sad that a lot of young people do get pushed into uni if they don't actually have any passion or drive to study something that requires uni, because I think technically that is what uni was supposed to be there for. You want to be a lawyer, you want to be a doctor, you want to be a pharmacist, cool, like you have to go to uni. Other than that, like if you don't want to really do those things, there's really no point wasting time at uni, because that's what it essentially is, wasting time. So I just noticed that my outlook on uni was very different to those. I was at uni and I'm like, I really want to know this material, I really want to study because this material, it's, you know, an interest of mine, it's a passion of mine. I need this knowledge in order to be successful in my future career. Whereas these people were like, why do you study? Why do you put in the extra time? Like, who cares? I don't care. It was a very negative, you know, response to learning and, you know, memorizing the material. And I don't blame them. I don't blame them because it's like 13 years of school and I couldn't even imagine the immense pressure that you get put under by parents and teachers and, you know, just competing with your peers for year 7 for a high ATAR score. Like, that would be so draining and that would turn me off life almost. And then obviously if you don't get the ATAR score you want, no one has ever taken the time to tell you all the other different ways that you can succeed in life. So you sit there and you go, wow, I'm actually a failure. This is it for me. I can't get into anything. I think it's interesting because like a lot of people, I'll tell them that I was homeschooled and they'll be like,
oh, but you did VCE, yeah?
And I'm like, no. And they're like,
well, how did you get into uni?
And that's because they don't know all the different pathways, which I can tell you now. I got into university because I did have a diploma, which is the equivalent of VCE. It's the equivalent of having an ATAR score. And I also had real career industry experience. So I'm not sure if my particular university appreciated the industry experience as well as me having the diploma, but I had both of those things. And honestly, like, I applied for a few programs at this uni and I got accepted into every single one. So I don't know if they just like me or what. But the point is that I definitely have some entitlement to brag a little bit because I was at 12 put through this ringer of like people doubting me and people thinking that I was just like a high school dropout who wasn't going to do anything when I was just so like career driven and goal driven and so ahead of the game when I was younger that is why I pulled out of high school, because I just felt like it was holding me back, and I just wanted a chance to like explore my interests, work out what I wanted to do. And I wasn't flourishing in the high school, I wasn't flourishing in the high school environment. I think that it's good though that I did go to uni first, because I was able then to build the foundations for my social skills. I'm not sure if socially I would be okay if I hadn't gone to uni first, if I hadn't gone to primary school and high school first, but I have no issue socializing or anything like that, and I think it's probably good that I went to school first. So that is my story of why I left school after year 7, and I hope if you're struggling with the school environment, you're able to look into your different pathways and options. I know parents don't always listen. I know they're not always supportive, and I'm just fortunate that mine are and were supportive. But I really hope that you don't think that school is the be-all and end-all of your life, because it most certainly is not. There are different pathways out there, and I just think you need to find them, and you need to work out what you want to do. And I wish you all the best of luck in that journey, to be quite honest, because it is very hard and it's very pressuring. And I even had moments of wondering if I really knew what I was doing. Before uni, I was kind of like, crap, what path am I on right now? There was just this period where I wasn't entirely sure which direction I was going in. So yeah, I think, good luck, and please subscribe, please follow me on Instagram, and I'm going to be doing a few more videos where I talk about personal experiences that I've had, and I hope that you will join me on those. Thank you. See you next time.